In my culture, women are notorious for choosing men over women, or favoring men over women, boys over girls, and even choosing their sons and favoring their sons at the expense of their daughters' own mental health and well-being. Hi, it's CT here from mysacredblood.com. Welcome and welcome back to the only channel on YouTube that focuses exclusively on truly holistic menstrual care. If you haven't already done it, go ahead and subscribe. If you're watching from the website, go ahead and join the mailing list and share this with at least one person who you feel will benefit from the content. Now, if you hear anyone talking about holistic menstrual care and they're not talking about Menarche, then that's obviously not truly holistic menstrual care, because Menarche is the single most important part of a woman's menstrual life cycle. And that's because the way that we experience our first menstruation is going to set the tone for how we experience every other menstrual period that's going to come after that. It's also going to set the tone for how we experience sex and sexuality and how we view our bodies and ourselves in general. And the reason why I bring up my culture is because I say that they are notorious for this, but it's quite the norm where women will favor boys over girls. They'll even, as soon as a girl starts, her titties start to bud, little itty bitty bud, she hasn't had her period yet, the women will begin to see her as a threat. And this is a theme that we see even to this day, especially with social media. We see that a lot of women are making themselves up to look almost like girls and are competing with young girls on social media. Anything from baby hairs to using the big eye filter to have this appearance or childlike appearance. And although this may seem like harmless fun, just having fun on the internet, just doing makeup, it is deeply rooted in the trauma associated with our first menstrual period. And a trauma can be anything from having a really horrible, painful menstrual period or menarche and having no support during that time, or simply having to deal with it all alone and having no support. So whether it's remarkable in the sense that it was traumatic, or whether it was not remarkable at all and you don't even remember your first period, that is still a trauma, and that is still going to set the tone for how you view yourself later on in life. So one of the first things that I would ask you in a coaching session, in the one-on-one coaching sessions, I start with a questionnaire. And one of the most important questions on that questionnaire is, tell me about your first menstrual cycle. Because if we have a bad first experience with our cycle, we're immediately not going to want to experience the next one. So every cycle, every period, we're going to dread it. And if we dread the next period, it's going to send in a flood of hormones that's just going to make that period worse. So the way we feel about our menstrual cycle is going to affect the way we feel our menstrual cycle. So in this video, I want to stress the importance of making Menarche a special event for a young girl so that she can live according to that experience. And just the same, I want to stress the importance of preparing for menopause, and how we treat ourselves during our periods is going to prepare us for the moment that we have our last one. So both menarche and menopause are very important events in a woman's lifetime. So I'm going to talk about 3 ways that you can make both of those experiences special for a young girl who's becoming a woman and for a woman who's eventually going to become an elder, and how we can embrace both and love both and appreciate both. That way, when we get older, as older women, we're supposed to be passing down our blood wisdom. We're supposed to be passing down this knowledge to young women. We're not supposed to be competing with them. It does such a disservice to womanhood in general and to motherhood. And so if we learn how to love our periods, then we're going to learn how to love becoming an elder, and we're going to appreciate our maturity, and we're not going to feel the need anymore to compete with young girls. We're going to stay in our lane and play our roles, all right? So the first thing that you can do for a young girl who is experiencing her first period is to mark the event or acknowledge the event with a gift. Because of my personal traumatizing experience with Menarche, my first period, I decided that for my niece, I was going to make a big deal out of it. So I made up these red invitations, and we decided to have a red party, a red themed party, red velvet cake. We got all dressed up in red. The theme was red, you know, the table was set in red. And this happened sometime around Easter, which is so fitting. So we brought her supplies that she might need for her period. You know, things like body wash, self-care items that she would use, new bras, new panties, and it was just an event. And I hope that she is going to remember that for the rest of her life. And so every time she has a period, it's not going to be so painful for her. And she's going to remember that we made such a big deal out of it. So that's the first thing. The second thing that you can do is pamper your young daughters when they do have their period. So for every cycle until they're comfortable doing it for themselves. This is pampering them, offering them teas and massages, a lot of bed rest, you know, a lot of support. In this way, a young girl is going to understand the difference between a loving touch, or she's going to learn what it is to feel a loving touch. And that loving touch is going to stop her from having to seek it from almost everywhere else. Because if a girl doesn't understand what it feels like to be loved and supported when she's coming into womanhood, she is going to go on a journey to find that. That is a guarantee, but it's going to be only the natural next step, that if she doesn't feel that loving touch and that support and that care when she's becoming a woman, then she's going to want to seek to find it, because it's absolutely necessary, and you can't blame a girl for seeking to find that. So I would say to mothers, of course, pamper your daughters. Treat her like an absolute princess at that time of the month. You're cooking for her, you're cleaning for her, you are giving her a massage, you are just waiting on her hand and foot. And I know that spoiling a child is probably not the best idea, but in this case, you want to spoil that young woman. And then eventually she'll learn how to do that on her own, and make her own teas and have her own baths and treat herself and know her own menstrual care routine or self-care routine when she comes of age, or a certain age, you know. So it's important to set the tone in that way. The third thing, of course, is to talk about it. And this could be part of that whole self-care routine. During that time, while you're pampering her, you know, while she's having her tea, it's a good time for mother and daughter to sit and talk about it. Even if you don't want to talk to somebody during your period, you know, if that's the time you just want to be alone and re-energize or whatever. After that, or around that time, you do want to talk to someone about how you're experiencing each one, because it does go up and down. Our emotions change, our behaviors change. You know, our feelings and the way our outlook on life is going to change. And when we have our periods, it's the time when, you know, we're most irritated and bothered, and everything else that we're experiencing in life is somehow comes out at this time. And so it's always the best time to have that kind of talk, especially with a young woman. And in this way, she's going to grow up doing this. She's going to keep this as a tradition, as a routine, and eventually as something that she can pass on to her daughter, but more importantly, something that she can continue doing for herself. So those are the three things you can do for a girl who's experiencing menarche, or who's experienced her first period, and then eventually how she experienced every period following that one. So for women in menopause, I would say to do the exact same thing. Not exactly, but the same sense, okay? So for a woman in menopause, you would acknowledge the event with a gift, you know, and this could be a gift for a friend. It can be a gift for your mother if she's going through menopause. It can be a gift for your daughter if you're a little older and you have an older daughter who's going through menopause. The signs eventually start to show when we deal with perimenopause. So in the months and years leading up to menopause, a woman will experience some of the symptoms. And so this is a good time to start preparing and to acknowledge it with a gift. So you might not throw the same big party that we did, you know, the red party, something, you know, even if it's just a lunch or Depends underwear or something, you know, just to let her know that you know that what she's about to go through, and that she's going to have all the support she needs when she gets there. The second thing you can do is to talk about it, of course. Menopause is something that a lot of women don't want to talk about because it comes with a lot of embarrassing symptoms, and I feel like this is the most important time to talk about it because, you know, if you're experiencing the symptoms of menopause, and I'm not quite there yet, but I am 40, and so I know that eventually or soon enough I will get there, and so I am preparing myself mentally for that time. If you don't have anyone, a friend that you feel you're close enough to talk about it, I would suggest even mentioning whatever you're feeling to your gynecologist. I know that medical professionals are not there to offer emotional support, and so that's why I feel like it's extremely important to have a menstrual mentor. And so you need someone just to discuss your period with, or the end of your period with. It's very important to be able to talk about it out loud because we know how hormones can get, and we want to talk about it, and then sometimes we feel like the only thing we can do is, you know, get upset or yell about it or lash out, and we don't want to do that to our husbands or our children or whatever, right? So find some support no matter where you need to go for it, and talk about it. Very important to talk periods. And finally, the third thing is to take care of yourself in the years leading up to menopause. So how you view your menstrual cycle is going to set the tone, like I said, for how you experience menopause later on in life. So if you have horrible periods all through your lifetime, then menopause is going to be probably 10 times worse. And so it's a good idea to start with a great menstrual care routine and to stick with that throughout your entire cycle and to make it a priority. So that is it. I do hope that helps. Remember, I'm here every moon day at noon, and that's Eastern time. Take care of yourself.